Inside the high-security corridors of the NATO summit, the geopolitical tectonic plates of Eurasia have just shifted. For 22 years, the alliance's leadership kept its distance from the Turkish capital. But as the war in Ukraine grinds into a critical phase, the focus of the Western world has locked onto a single strategic corridor, the narrow, volatile waters stretching from the Black Sea to the Eastern Mediterranean. President Donald Trump, returning to the global stage, bypassed traditional European hubs and landed in Turkey with a clear objective. His eyes were fixed on one man, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Trump recognized a brutal military reality. Turkey possesses NATO's second-largest standing army, a battle-hardened military machine, and most importantly, the physical key to Russia's southern maritime flank. In a move that stunned the Kremlin and rewrote the rules of engagement, Trump did the unthinkable. He announced the immediate lifting of CAATSA, the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, which had paralyzed U.S.-Turkish defense cooperation for years. "We're going to be taking the sanctions off," Trump declared. We don't want to sanction friends. With a single stroke of a pen, Washington did not just repair a fractured alliance. It unlocked the hangar doors for the F-35 Lightning II, secured the supply chain for advanced jet engines, and effectively shattered the invisible diplomatic wall Vladimir Putin spent a decade building to isolate Ankara from the West. The strategic buffer in the Black Sea just became an active front. To understand why this decision sent shockwaves through Moscow's high command, we must analyze the military geography of the Black Sea. Since the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, Russia transformed the peninsula into an impenetrable fortress. This is what military strategists call an A2/AD zone, anti-access and area denial. The Kremlin deployed its premier air defense assets here, the S-400 Triumph. Paired with Bastion coastal anti-ship missile batteries, Monolith B radar systems, and cutting-edge electronic warfare suites like the Krasuka 4, Russia created an electronic and kinetic dome. This shield covers nearly the entire northern and central airspace of the Black Sea, designed specifically to detect and destroy conventional fourth-generation NATO aircraft like the F-16 or Eurofighter Typhoon, long before they can release their payloads. For years, this A2/AD bubble severely restricted NATO's operational flexibility. But the re-entry of Turkey into the F-35 program fundamentally breaks this equation. Let's look at the technical breakdown. The F-35 is not just a fighter jet, it is a low observable flying sensor node. With a radar cross-section comparable to a metal marble, the F-35 is engineered to exploit the radar gaps inherent in long-range surveillance systems. While an S-400 can track a standard fighter at 400 kilometers, its ability to lock on to a stealth-configured F-35 drops dramatically to less than 30 kilometers, well within the launch envelope of precision-guided standoff weapons. Furthermore, the F-35's AN/ASQ-239 electronic warfare suite can map, jam, and deceive the precise frequencies used by the S-400's engagement radars. If Turkish airspace is populated by fifth-generation stealth assets, Russia's multi-billion-dollar air defense network in Crimea shifts from being an aggressive shield to a highly vulnerable target. Turkish F-35s could seamlessly infiltrate Russian radar sectors, coordinate target data with Ukrainian forces, and directly threaten the remnants of Russia's surface fleet. Ironically, Putin's greatest diplomatic victory of 2017, selling the S-400 to Turkey to trigger U.S. sanctions and halt the delivery of over 100 F-35s, has officially backfired. The weapon bought to divide NATO has now forced the alliance to adapt, innovate, and ultimately return with a more lethal doctrine. But the lifting of sanctions goes far beyond the F-35. The immediate tactical victory for Ankara lies in the domain of propulsion, specifically the American-made General Electric F110 turbofan engine. The F110 is the reliable high-thrust backbone of Turkey's massive F-16 Fighting Falcon fleet, which is currently undergoing the massive Özgür modernization program. More critically, the F110 is the temporary heart of Turkey's most ambitious indigenous military project, the KAAN. The KAAN is Turkey's homegrown fifth-generation national combat aircraft. Developed by Turkish aerospace industries, this twin-engine stealth platform is designed to replace aging airframes and project power across 3 continents. However, domestic engine development is a notoriously complex and time-consuming engineering challenge. Turkey needed U.S. clearance for the F110 engines to power the initial production blocks of the KAAN. Trump's waiver ensures that the KAAN program moves from experimental flight tests into full-rate serial production without delay. With both the F-35 and the KAAN entering the operational equation, Turkey is on track to field one of the most technologically advanced air forces in Europe, completely altering the balance of power on Russia's southern border. This aerospace expansion is backed by a dominant domestic defense industry that has revolutionized modern attrition warfare. Turkey's Baykar National UAV program holds an astonishing 60% of the global combat drone export market. The legendary Bayraktar TB2 became a global icon during the opening weeks of the 2022 invasion, single-handedly blunting the tip of the Russian armored spear outside Kyiv by obliterating multi-million-dollar logistical columns and air defense systems. Today, Turkey isn't just exporting drones, it is establishing a permanent defense infrastructure inside Ukraine. Baykar is proceeding with a $100 million production facility near Kyiv to build advanced Akinci and Kizilelma unmanned platforms. By combining heavy long-range armed UAVs with traditional stealth aviation, Turkey is pioneering a dual-threat doctrine. In a hot conflict, low-cost drone swarms would be used to saturate and confuse Russian air defenses, allowing fifth-generation manned fighters to deliver the decisive surgical blow. Despite these technological advancements, Turkey's ultimate weapon against Russia is not forged in a factory, it is dictated by geography. For 3 centuries, the geopolitical obsession of the Russian state, from the Tsars to the Soviet Union to Vladimir Putin, has been the unhindered access to warm water ports. The Black Sea is a massive maritime cul-de-sac. It has exactly one exit to the global ocean, the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits. And for nearly 300 years, the sole guardian of these narrow choke points has been Turkey. This geographic reality is backed by an ironclad legal instrument, the 1936 Montreux Convention. Under international law, this treaty grants Ankara absolute sovereignty over the straits. In peacetime, commerce flows freely. But the moment war breaks out, Article 19 of the convention activates, giving Turkey the legal authority to close the gates to the warships of any belligerent power. In late February 2022, Ankara did exactly that. By declaring the situation in Ukraine a war, Turkey slammed the door shut. While this move was framed as strict neutrality under the treaty, its practical application on the battlefield was a catastrophic blow to the Russian Navy. As the war progressed, Ukraine utilized innovative Magura 5 maritime suicide drones and Neptune anti-ship missiles to systematically decimate Russia's Black Sea fleet, sinking flagship cruisers, landing ships, and submarines. Under normal naval doctrine, the Russian Admiralty would reinforce its bleeding assets by transferring surface combatants from its Baltic or Mediterranean fleets. But they couldn't. The Turkish gate was locked. Because of Montreux, Russia's Black Sea fleet was trapped in an enclosed basin, isolated from reinforcement, and left to rot under a relentless rain of Ukrainian precision strikes. Simultaneously, Montreux prevented non-literal NATO warships from entering, preventing a direct flashpoint between global nuclear powers while cementing Turkey as the undisputed arbiter of the maritime theater. To view Turkey's policy through a lens of pure hostility toward Moscow, however, would be an analytical error. What Erdogan executes is a masterclass in pragmatic, cold-blooded realpolitik. Turkey did not join Western economic sanctions against Russia. Erdogan deliberately kept a direct line of communication open with Putin, leveraging this unique position to broker critical diplomatic breakthroughs like the 2022 Black Sea Grain Initiative, which averted a global food crisis. Even today, Turkey remains economically entangled with Russia, relying on Moscow for roughly 45% of its natural gas and partnering with Rosatom to construct the Akkuyu nuclear power plant. But make no mistake, when red lines are crossed, Ankara strikes without hesitation. In 2015, Turkey became the first NATO member in decades to shoot down a Russian Su-24 fighter jet that violated its airspace. In Syria, Libya, and the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, Turkish military hardware and proxy forces have consistently defeated Russian-backed armies on 3 different fronts. Now, with Trump's sudden lifting of sanctions, Putin faces a logistical and strategic nightmare. The Russian position in Crimea is already crumbling under daily Ukrainian strikes. The Black Sea Fleet has been forced to retreat from its historic base in Sevastopol to safer ports in Novorossiysk. If you superimpose an upgraded 5th-generation equipped Turkish military onto this fractured Russian landscape, the Kremlin finds itself caught in a vice. Russia can no longer protect its southern flank. Its maritime logistics lines to Syria and Africa are vulnerable, and its primary tools of geopolitical leverage are evaporating. By removing the KAAN sanctions, Trump did not just hand Turkey a fleet of advanced jets. He weaponized the country Russia fears most in the region at the exact moment Putin's forces are stretched to their absolute limits. The lock on the Black Sea remains firmly in Turkish hands, and the key has just been turned. What do you think? Will the integration of F-35s and the KAAN jet completely push Russia out of the Black Sea? Or will Putin find an economic lever to break Turkey's resolve? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep military analysis. Thank you for watching.